It's been 2 long years since I returned from Scotland. It's a bit confusing. It seems like almost a lifetime away. But yet, I remember everything like it was yesterday. I remember the journey. I remember getting in the car. I remember the snow on the side of the road as I made my way through the south of England to the north, and eventually the journey that took me into Scotland. It wasn't made out of necessity, but rather desperation. You see, I was failing and I was stuck. I was a bit miserable at the time. And dare I say, all the lockdowns weren't helping. I couldn't see any friends or family, or anyone I truly bonded with, who would get my quirky jokes and characteristics, who would ignore my oddities. It seemed the people I was surrounded by were just as miserable as I was, yet with all this misery, no one was willing to make a change. And I'd only been there a few months. But as soon as I got there, the lockdowns began, and I felt the misery around me. It was a misery the neighbours tried to share with others, almost like they were breaking bread. It's almost like they were saying, well, I'm miserable, so you must be miserable too. One thing I've always been taught is to never wallow in misery for too long. And if you're around people like that, get away. I wasn't getting any of my work done. My writing was cast to the side. I wasn't walking my dogs as much or spending time outdoors. There was a lot of moaning, whining, complaining. The atmosphere was not great. Neighbours, people I came across in the streets, and the shops were all the same. So I knew it was a community problem, and speaking to good friends who were counties away, they remarked, of course, that's what that town is known for. They've always been miserable. They're never quite happy, never quite content. There's always a big problem ahead of them. And that's when I decided to leave. Although I was stuck, and local laws and regulations meant I couldn't leave the country, I did make the bold decision to go away and see the horses, go to Scotland. One thing that's always calmed me down, apart from my writing and creativity, is animals. My dogs, horses, wildlife, nature. I grew up in nature as a child, and I hope when my time eventually comes to leave this earth, I'll be around nature. It's always given me a feeling of peace and solitude. It's always stilled my nerves. It always kept anxiety and any diseases of the mind at bay. It gives me the feeling that everything will always be okay, and that everything will pass. So that was the sort of confidence I had in nature. I'd never been to the Scottish house I was going to. I had a quick chat with a lady about her horses. She was very eccentric, I could tell. I was a writer and I just needed to get away. She needed the same thing. She also needed help as she was very isolated from her family and friends. And she said if I could make the journey up there, once I got up there, I'd be in complete isolation and I'd be fine. And I could have all the dogs, horses, mud, hay, and grass I needed. I'm glad I took the risk, because it was life-changing. One thing we do as human beings is we overthink things. We think and we think. It's almost like we can't stop our brains. from sabotaging us. I made the decision in 5 minutes, and within a week I'd contacted her. In January, I drove up. A new lockdown had just been announced in England, and it wasn't doing anyone good. My friends, who were all in the big city in London, were near each other, and they could meet in the parks, and they could FaceTime and call each other. But with me, I was very, very isolated. When you're in a situation like that, it's better to be on your own. I was done with miserable people. And that was the decision I made on the day I arrived. It was almost like a message from the gods. The sun was shining. The sun hadn't come out in nearly 3 weeks, and there it was, bright as I pulled up into the huge driveway. It was a stately home. It was huge, made of stone, surrounded by fields as far as the eye could see. It even had its own river. Nearby were the horse stables, where the horses waited, content. There were all sorts of facilities, but nothing modern. It was all very rustic and charming. Huge fireplaces, no central heating, a grand hall, and I just couldn't believe it had its own river. She was a bit worried that I would struggle with the solitude. I told her I'd been around misery over the last few months, and solitude was exactly what I needed to repair and heal and cleanse myself. I walked dogs, walked horses, galloped across fields, sat by the lake, and I wrote. It was a period where my great creativity was truly unleashed. I got an encyclopedia size of ideas I'm still going through bit by bit and implementing. So I say this to you. If things are not going as planned, if you made a move that didn't quite work, and if you feel the energy around you is not right, it's not happy, it's miserable, it's begrudging. So many of us try to force friendships and force situations because we've made a move or a commitment. But I believe that's just to our detriment. Just move, and you never know what you might find. Now, almost 2 years later, I'm in a different country. I'm steeped in even more creativity. I'm making friends. I'm living a life I never thought would be possible from just 2 years ago. So I say, free yourself of the shackles. Just because you've made a decision doesn't mean you can't change your mind. I see people punish themselves for simple decisions, putting themselves in impossible situations and allowing their pride to take over, rather than just admitting it's not working and moving on to something greater.